Well, there's good news and there's bad news. The good news is both the tents are pitched and look great. I've broken one of my poles. This camp is really not going to plan. Everything seems to be going wrong today, so I think I'm going to stop filming now. Hello and welcome to the Brecon Beacons. I'm out here with my friend Luke and we are heading up to Van Cleer today, which is a peak in the Brecon Beacons I've never visited. I'm really enjoying this area. We've come on about a 5-mile walk today and it'll be about 5 miles back, and we are going to set up a temporary Terra Nova showroom on the top of this mountain, and I'll tell you a bit more about that later. For now, we'll carry on for the last 1.5 miles of this walk, enjoying a bit of sunshine here, and we'll see you up at the top. Good luck. You'll be fine. We have finished our walk now. We've reached the spot we are going to camp in. We didn't quite make it to the top of Van Cleer for two reasons really. The first reason is that it's quite windy up here, so my anemometer is reading gusts of 20 miles an hour already, and that's when we're in our sheltered spot, so the wind speeds are a little bit higher, just sort of 20 or 30 meters over on the top of the ridge there. So we've taken a little bit of shelter. It's, as I say, about 15-20 mile an hour gusts, and I think it's going to stay like that through the night probably. The other reason for not going to Van Cleer, which is about 1 kilometre away from here I think, is that I'm just having to be careful with my knee. So that issue that cropped up last year has come back. Won't go on about that too much. I've got some scans coming up and physio and stuff, and hopefully I'll find out what's going on there. But yeah, I just want to be careful of that. I'm not going to push it. It was a 5.9 mile walk to get here. It's going to be around about 5 miles in the morning, so I just want to take it easy. So we are at our spot now. Not sure what the elevation is. I'll stick it up on the screen. I think it's about 610 meters, something like that. And we've got some good views. So you'll see I've got some sunshine on me. That is just behind me there. It is 3:45, so we have about an hour until sunset, and then hopefully about another 3/4 of an hour of daylight after that. That would be good. Just down here at the bottom we've got the reservoir, and over that way, right in the middle of the screen, you can see Corndee and then Pen y Fan just behind it. And we've got Van Vowr over here as well. I think that's Van Vowr pointed to. And I mentioned earlier that we were going to be setting up a Terra Nova showroom up here, and that's because Luke has got himself a new tent. So You might remember about a year and a half ago, Luke and I did a camp at Llyn Van Vac and we experienced some very high winds. I measured around about 65 miles an hour, I think, just 5 meters away from our tents. And on the walk down, we had winds of 105 miles an hour. So Luke's tent did not enjoy those winds in the night. He has since bought himself a Terra Nova Quasar, which is just going up now for its very first pitch. So this is a renowned mountain tent. This is going to give Luke a really sturdy shelter for the high winds. I mean, this is a fairly exposed spot. We are already seeing winds of 20 miles an hour, as I said, so it's really good to have a solid shelter that you can trust in. And yeah, I need to get my tent pitched as well. Let's do that first, and then I'll have a chat afterwards, and we'll have a look at Luke's tent, I think. There's good news and there's bad news. The good news is both the tents are pitched and look great. Really good views out to the central beacons over here. And Luke's tent, the Quasar, looks absolutely rock solid. It's actually a really good comparison of the two tents. So for anyone who doesn't know, we've got the Terra Nova Southern Cross one over here, and we've got the Quasar here. And if I come side on, look at the difference in size. This thing is an absolute tank. So that's the good news. Tents are pitched. You can see the reservoir over the top there. Sun is just starting to go down. Look at that sky. I mean, that's good news as well. Bad news is, well, the bad news for mine was twofold. So you might have seen from the time lapse of me pitching that I had to stop partway through. And that's because last night when I was packing up, I decided to put the footprint back on my tent, because on my last camp on Cribbin, I realised that I'd left the footprint off from the previous camp. So this time round I wanted the footprint on, and I was hurriedly putting it all back together on the landing floor last night at home, just sort of squeezed on the landing outside the bathroom, and I was trying to get everything back together, and I accidentally put the footprint on with the tension band on top of the tent. So the tension band is the bit that runs under the tent floor to make sure that the tent pulls out into shape properly when you pull the poles out. I got that on top of the tent, so I was trying to put the tent up inside out and upside down, and it just wasn't working. So I had to take the pole out, put the tension band back underneath the tent, reattach the footprint, and as I was putting it up, there was a bit of a ping, and I've broken one of my poles. So it's not really where I was expecting to break a pole ever. I've never broken a pole before, and I'll show you now what I've done. So when I heard that ping, what was happening was the end of this pole was breaking off. Well, so it was breaking off, it broke off, it's fractured off the end there. So the nose of the pole where it goes into this little Y junction here, so you can see the three poles attach in this hub. There's a little aluminium sort of protrusion that locates in that hole, but as you can see, I'm just going to put that back in quickly. As you can see, that pole is not connecting properly because it's broken at the end, so that is now just resting on the outside of the hub. So that's a fail. Fortunately, it looks like it's all going to work. You can see the tent has still pitched absolutely fine. And if I wobble this pole around, I'm wobbling that quite a lot now. If you look how much I'm moving that, that is staying roughly in place. So it's basically just pushing into the hole and kind of holding itself there. I was thinking about wrapping some cordage around this pole to tie it over onto here to make sure it can't sort of ping upwards, but I think we're actually going to be okay. The tent is connected to the pole, which is helping. But yeah, that is not ideal really. The poles for these tents do come with a 2-year replacement warranty, so I should be able to contact Terra Nova and get this pole replaced. I do hear people talking about these sort of Y-section poles, because where the poles join, I hear about failures at the hub. But I've never seen one, never experienced one. I've never even seen a photo of one that's failed. So I guess this probably is the typical failure people talk about. So I'll have to do a bit of research about that and find out how common this is. I'll be in touch with Terra Nova to discuss that. I hope there won't be a problem in getting that replaced. But yeah, everything else has gone okay. The tent has pitched as usual. I don't even know exactly why it happened. I did have my camera set up to film that the time lapse, but it was just a time lapse, so it's a photo every second. So I'm not going to get a proper video of that happening I can watch back. Obviously I don't want to do it again, so I'd like to learn from whatever I did, but it's one of those things, I suppose. I know some people are a little bit skeptical about YouTubers, particularly because I am a Terra Nova affiliate. So I think people like to think that we sort of blur the truth and only tell you what we want to tell you, but when it comes to me, I just want to document whatever happens on my camps. This has happened to me today, so I'm showing you. I have nothing to hide. You experience it with me as it happens. Just get this guy line tensioned up a little bit. The wind has died off nicely now. I think it's down to about 10 or 15 miles an hour. It's a cold wind. I don't know if you can see the camera shaking, but I'm starting to shiver now, so I'm going to get my dry clothes on. I've got my down pants. I cannot wait to get those back on. And then I think it's time to have a sit down and a bite to eat. Let's have a quick look in Luke's Quasar before it gets too dark. Look at all of that space. What's the sleep mat again? The Big Agnes Rapide SL insulated. So that's 11 centimeters thick. My Stonewrest Neo Air X is 6.4 centimeters, so that's nearly twice as thick. It's so tall. Definitely a genuine 2-man tent, this one. 4 pockets, 2 doors, 2 vestibules. Plenty of space to cook. Looking good. Sunset's not overly visible from here. We're kind of tucked down behind the top here, so we can't quite see out to the west where the sun's setting, but it's a lush evening. That's the last of the sunlight showing through. It's still quite clear in the sky, so the daylight should hang around a bit, even though sunset has been and gone now. We're just enjoying a classic Brewdog Punk IPA. A couple of beers. Watch the daylight fade, looking straight over at Pen y Fan there, as you can see. And it's just about time for some food now, and I'm going to get some hot water on the go. I've got 3 meals with me. I've got chicken tikka and rice, chocolate pudding for dessert, and mac and cheese, which I haven't tried before. And you'll also see a little silver thing here. This is an insulated food pouch, which my parents kindly gave me for Christmas. So the idea is that I can hold my my food pouch in the insulated food pouch holder, should we call it? And it just stops the food from cooling down too quickly. It's particularly helpful when you are making dehydrated food, so because you've got to pour the hot water into the food pouch and leave it there for about 10 to 15 minutes to soak in, your meal can cool down really quickly in cold conditions, so the insulated pouch will just keep that heat in. Anyway, you can hardly see me. I'll stop waffling and I'm going to make some food. This camp is really not going to plan. Everything seems to be going wrong today, so I think I'm going to stop filming now before, I don't know, my gas canister blows up and takes my hand off with it or something. But I'm just cooking my food here, as you can see, so I've got my MSR wind burner on the go. But just as I came to sit down and enjoy the last of the daylight and then tuck into some nice hot food, I was just putting my Trekker chair kit back together, and the wind, little gust of wind, picked up and blew my chair into the wind burner, knocked it over, and all of my nice hot water spilled out. So I don't have an excessive amount of water on this camp. I brought 1.5 litres in my water bladder and just half a litre to cook with, and that half litre is what got spilled out. So yeah, that's never ever happened. I'm so careful with things, that's never happened on a camp before, but that water is gone. Fortunately, I didn't drink much on the way up here out of my 1.5 litres, so I should be fine. And there is some running water on the walk back down as well, so I can filter that if I really need to. It's just frustrating, and yeah, it feels like a cursed camp, but you're not really going to be able to see. Right in the middle of the screen now, there is a dim glow. I will stick up a photo I took on my phone just now, which is going to be very slightly better, but we're just sitting here watching the moon rise just next to Pen y Fan, which is really quite magical actually. I've never had a moonrise like this on a camp. It's a huge full moon as well, so it looks really impressive. But yeah, I'm going to stop filming now before something else goes catastrophically wrong, and I will hopefully show you a bit of a time lapse of the night sky now, and I'll talk to you again in the morning. Good morning, it's 8:30 now, and if you look just behind me you can see Pen y Fan, and although the sky has brightened up, we haven't really had any bright sunshiny sunrise this morning, but that's fine. It's still January, so dry weather is a bonus really, and it didn't even get that cold last night. It was I think I saw between 1.2 and 2.2 degrees all night inside the tent, so nothing froze, which makes everything that little bit easier. And I mean, I didn't really talk to you all that much in the first half of the video, arriving at camp and everything, but there are more disasters I didn't tell you about. So I packed most of my kit last night so that I could meet Luke this morning and head over into Wales. And just as I joined the motorway to head north, my girlfriend phoned me to say, "Did you mean to leave your walking shoes in the hall?" Obviously I didn't. I was just wearing some very slippery trainers. So as soon as my journey began, I had to sit on the motorway, wait until I could turn off and go back home, pick up my shoes, and then begin the journey north. Of course, you then saw me cock up my footprint, so I had the tension band, which is this bit here. So this is the tension band that runs all the way from one side of the tent, under the tent floor, to the other side, and that just makes sure that the tent pulls into shape as you pitch it and get the pegs in on the main tent body there. So while I was fitting my footprint last night at home, I got that band on top of the tent. So that band was running over here, and I was trying to put the pole in. Obviously I couldn't pop the tent up because there was a strap in the way, so had to dismantle the tent. And then of course he saw me putting up the tent and I broke a pole, so I can show you a bit better now in the daylight. This is the pole that snapped, so I'm not sure if I can do this with one hand, but if I slightly withdraw this one, you can see that silver tip there. That locates in the hole of this this pole hub here. So if I just pop that back in, so that's what holds all these poles in place. But this one, that metal tip fractured off the tip of the pole. So you can see that the pole doesn't push properly into the hub here. Unfortunately, I mean, as I showed you earlier, it is held to the tent here and it hasn't popped out. We did have some breezes in the night, but it wasn't too strong, so that hasn't actually caused me any problems. This tent is, I think, one year and 10 months old, so the 2-year warranty on poles should be in place. The Terra Nova say that they will replace your poles free of charge, whether it's accidental or an actual product failure. So all being well, I'm sure I can just get in touch with Terra Nova and say, my tent pole failed, I'd like to replace it please. Technically I think I could get a whole new pole, not really sure what the policy is there. It might just be that the little section here that's failed will get replaced. Either way, that will be renewed without issue, I would hope. And then my 4th error, of course, out of 5, was knocking over my freshly boiled hot water. So my Thermarest tracker chair caught the wind and knocked my pot and knocked the whole lot on the floor, which I don't think I've ever done before. So that wasn't ideal. And then at night, I mean, I sat out here for about 3 hours last night. I was in my down pants and my insulated boots, to show you these here. So my Montane boots, my Rab Argon down pants. And I just sat here for hours watching the night sky. Had some cloud drifting over, had all the stars to watch, and there were loads of head torches going up and down. Penavan is often the way, particularly at the weekends. And I was really, really warm. Luke was in his aluminium camping chair, so that doesn't benefit from the insulating properties of a Thermarest mat inside the tracker chair kit sleeve. So Luke got cold quite quickly and had to retire to his tent and do a bit of reading. Look at that tent, it is an absolute beast. Love the look of that. So yeah, that was my 4th error, knocking over my water. 5th error, I got into my tent and realised I hadn't pitched it properly, and again, I've never done that with this tent. I've never failed to pitch it well, because it's really easy to pitch. But in taking off the footprint at home, I fitted the footprint. I've actually messed around with it in the night, so it's not attached the way it normally would be. I'd normally attach it with a toggle through the eyelets here. But I find that with the blue pole here, the tent pitches better if I put the pole on one side in the inner eyelet, and then on the opposite side I use the outer eyelet. And using that inner eyelet gives a little bit more tension in the tent, but it also makes it a bit steeper here, so actually the roof of the tent's a bit higher. And what that also does, because the inner tent is connected to the outer tent using all these toggles, when you raise that blue pole at the top, it pulls the whole inner tent up a bit, and it makes the sides a little bit more taut. So you can see that the side here is sagging a little bit, and that side is sagging a fair bit as well. And if I walk you around to here, because the top of the tent wasn't that little bit high like it normally is, it meant that this bit was kind of saggy in, so the outer was starting to touch the inner. And of course that means you can get some moisture on the inside of the tent. And I did think the inner tent was going to hit me in the head as well, just with the bits of wind pressing it against me. Thankfully that wasn't too big a problem, but yeah, not my best pitch, not my best camp in general, in terms of my skills, my general competence, but the camp itself has been really good regardless. These are just niggles, everything can be fixed, no one got hurt, I was perfectly safe and warm, so I'm not complaining. It just seems to be a bit of a comedy of errors, the typical YouTube disaster camp. I almost died, I had to bail, all that kind of stuff. Thankfully I didn't have to bail because the car was about 6 miles away, but yeah, one of those camps where things just haven't quite gone to plan. Luke has just gone for a brief walk over to Van Cleer, which is about 1.5 kilometres that way, I believe. I'm just trying to keep the distance off my knee because I know it's going to be a little bit of a challenge to get back, so don't really need to be adding any mileage on that. But while Luke's away, let's have a sneaky look at his tent. So this thing takes 22 pegs to pitch. You've got 8 pegs to hold the inner tent down here, and then another matching 8 pegs to hold the fly sheet in line with those, and then you've got 6 guide points as well. And this thing is, I know I said it last night, but it's an absolute tank. And Luke is really tall as well, so having this extra height on the inside makes a really big difference to him. And if I stand back again and show these tents in the daylight, there is a dramatic size difference between the two. But you can see just the shape of this thing, the angles there, it's really not going to hit the wind's not going to hit it too hard. It's even an even better angle than the Southern Cross one actually, just that nice sloping profile there. And if I come to the side as well, you'll see that side on as well, it doesn't have such steep side walls as some tents do. Granted, it's fairly steep just because it's so tall, but that is definitely made to be up in the mountains and to take some really, really unpleasant weather. It's a really nice spot up here actually. It's very, very quiet. I wasn't sure how popular it would be. It's a really long ridge here, so you could really pitch up all the way along the very top. We didn't want to be right on top of that ridge just because it was quite breezy yesterday. So we were trying to find somewhere that just drops off the edge. If I show you from this angle, up on top is right in the wind, but it just drops down a little bit. So we were looking all the way along here when we arrived yesterday, trying to find some level pitches that also had shelter, but also had a view. So we wanted to be able to see the reservoir down here because it seemed a shame not to. We also really wanted to be able to see Corndy and Pen y Fan, central beacons, and we've got Van Vower right here, which is a hill I camped last summer, maybe even the summer before. It was 30-something degrees, scorching day, fantastic views, loved that camp. And we're going to head up there on our way down actually, so we're going to make our way down across here, and then we'll climb up Van Vower and then drop down the other side back to the Beacons Reservoir car park where we left the car yesterday. So I haven't spoken too much about my kit on this trip. I'll give you a very quick rundown. As any of my regular viewers will be familiar with, this is my Terra Nova Southern Cross 1. I used my Rabascent 900 sleeping bag on my Thermarest Neo Air X-Therm mat, and I also brought my collapsible closed cell foam mat at the back there, which I was going to put my Trekker chair kit on just to protect it, but because this is a nice soft grassy campsite, I didn't bother using that. And I also brought my fire maple lantern, so I didn't actually show you that last night, but while I was sitting out just admiring the night sky, I had the lantern lit there. It just made it, even though it was 1 degree, it made it feel a little bit cozier. And yeah, I just kept adding things to my pack this time, and the total pack weight was just over 21 kilos yet again. I have people messaging me saying I never camp with any more than 8 or 9 kilos, but I don't know how they do it, because once I've got a tent, a couple of litres of water, sleeping bag, sleep mat, particularly my filming kits, so my drone and my GoPro, the weight just keeps coming up and up and up, and I rarely have under 18 kilos in the winter. So if you're one of these people who's camping in winter with 8 or 9 kilos, please let me know how you do it. Are you just not carrying food or water? Or maybe you only wear one shoe? I don't know, but I'd love to know how you get below 10 kilos in winter. It's 9:30 now, we've packed up all our stuff. We've been careful to have a look around where each tent was to make sure that we've left no trace. Thank you to everyone who has watched the video this far, congratulations for making it, and thank you to everyone who watched my previous video from cribbing. It was really good to get lots of comments from you all talking about stoves. I'm still hunting for that elusive perfect stove. I think I have an idea of what I want, but I can't find it anywhere for sale yet, so I'll keep looking, keep having a think. And hello to all the new subscribers who have joined me since that video. I'm closing in on 2,500 now, so thank you to everyone for following along and watching, sharing, commenting, liking. It's good to hear from you all. It's good to know that people are watching the videos and maybe having their own ideas about getting out for a camp as well. So now that we're all camped up, we have our 6 mile or so walk back to the car. I'm not going to film that, it's quite grey today, but also because I'm out with Luke for a social camp, I'm not doing quite so much filming and talking, but more chat on the next video I'm sure, and I'll see you on that one. Bye for now.